The dish I'm preparing today is fish and chips, but with a Hebridean twist. Over the last few weeks, I've been working on what makes a perfect fish and chips, going around most of the establishments on the island, trying to figure out is it the potatoes you use for the chips, is it the type of fish, and the quality of the batter. And the results have been quite interesting, and that leads me to here today with the ingredients in front of me. What I have is poacher's ale from the Loomshed Brewery and the Orkney vinegar infused with sugar kelp. These are the two main ingredients that are going to make this dish. Starting off, I've got the potatoes. My choice of potatoes today, Maris Pipers. I've got a lovely bit of fish from Ronnie Scott's fish shop, Islander Shellfish. We're going to make a classic accompaniment with the fish, which is a tartar sauce, but we're going to do it from scratch using or infusing the vinegar and some dried seaweed. That's basically our ingredients. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with the potatoes. Now, looking at the chippy chips, what I find is there's different grades of colour and the texture is pretty much the same in most of them. So I find it interesting, and through research what I've found is that most chippies, now correct me if I'm wrong, they use this bright white or dry white powder in the chips. What they do is they submerge the chips in the solution for a certain amount of time, then they drain them and wash them off. And what happens is, no, they don't wash them off, but what happens is the potato stays white for up to 24 hours out of water. But again, the classic part of a chippy for me is the little crispy bits on the bottom of the tray. So what I found is with this potato recipe, which is going to be a triple cooked chips, we're taking all the sort of components associated with the chip and creating that sort of memory. We'll take the potato. Now, I want to keep the skin on for this, because skin for me is flavour. We want to cut our potatoes into nice chunks. You're probably talking about maybe 2 centimetre thick anyway. I want to keep them roughly the same size. You can see there were 3 potato eels. We've got quite a substantial amount of chips there. Now the next thing I'm going to do is pop them into our pan. We're going to season them lightly, just cover them with cold water and take them up to the simmer and just cook them until they're almost falling apart. Salt, and we'll just head over to the stove. So while the potatoes are cooking, a point I should have mentioned before was before we put them on the heat, we give them a rinse under cold water first to rid them of the starch, and then season onto the simmer. So while the potatoes are on, we're going to get on with our batter. Now the batter, it's been a few days trying different versions of batter out. Plain flour, sparkling water, raising flour, all types, adding salt, baking powder. Out of all the results, the best one that I've come up with, the crispier one, with the most flavour, would be using gluten-free flour. Now I know with the gluten, it's a massive thing for people just now. There seems to be a big push more than ever when it comes to gluten-free products. So the result itself, being the crispiest, I'm going to run with the gluten-free. The tastier is going to come from the ale itself. We're going to really get them flavours through into the batter. Now the gluten-free flour itself, it's made from a mix of gluten-free blends, the likes of rice, potato, tapioca, maize and buckwheat. If you didn't want to use ale, you could use sparkling water. It's entirely up to you. So we're going to start off with 280 grams of gluten-free flour. Now the thing with gluten-free flour is as well, it doesn't absorb as well as normal flour. Into our flour we're going to add 2 teaspoons of salt, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, and 300 milliliters of the ale. Good whisk. Yeah, during the research process there's so many different bowls, pieces of paper flying around the kitchen, and kind of piece everything together. It's got a lovely yeasty flavour, smell to it. There we have it. And I'm going to leave that just to start sort of fermenting for about 10 minutes. Let's get that aside. And now we'll get on with the tartar sauce. Now for the tartar sauce, I'm doing it completely from scratch, which means making your mayonnaise from scratch as well. The reason I wanted to do it was because I wanted to show off one of the basic sauces with such skills lacking in young folk today. It's one of the first things we learned in college was to make mayonnaise, not with a machine, but by hand. Now when I show you the process, you can sort of paint the picture of how difficult it is doing it by hand. But it gives you the appreciation of the finished result before we even come onto machines. Anyway, onto the meal. We've got 2 egg yolks, straight into the machine. Now make sure the eggs are as fresh can be. Free range obviously. 1 teaspoon of English mustard. And 2 teaspoons of our Orkney vinegar. Now the vinegar was given to me by Ronnie Scott at Islander Shellfish. Lovely, the sugar cap just comes through there. It's just an absolutely stunning vinegar. So we've got the 2 yolks in there, we've got the teaspoon of mustard. I'm going to adjust a few turns of salt in there just now. The oil. Now when you buy mayonnaise, and there's different versions out there, good versions, the strange versions, the almost fat-free versions, or no fat at all, but just like, I don't know what it's like to be honest. If you're going to have a mayonnaise, go for the real thing. If you're going to have such a treat, yeah, just absolutely go for the real McCoy. And there's other ones out there where I know they add, I can't remember what they add to it to make it as bright as emulsion paint. You go, really? Here, I've got a neutral kind of oil, sunflower oil, 250 mils. You can use other oils as well, it's completely up to yourselves. We could even use olive oil in this, but I'm not going to add it just now. What we could do, once we've got it to the standard, we could whisk in a little bit of olive oil just for the flavour, and the flavour would stretch that far. Starting off, now we're just going to add the oil in a slow thread. Now we can see there it's already starting to emulsify. When we get to a set standard, we could speed the process of adding oil up, but we're just going to take our time in case it curdles. Now if it does curdle, we can save the sauce by perhaps adding another egg yolk and just balance things out a bit more with some oil in the egg yolks. But so far so good. Just scrape down. One more scrape down. There we have our homemade mayonnaise. The colour comes from obviously the free range eggs and the English mustard. Now if you weren't, I'd rather the flavour of English mustard than this. If you weren't keen on English mustard, you can use Dijon mustard. So what I'll do is I'm going to set this aside into a bowl and prepare the bits and pieces for the tartar sauce itself. So we'll just check our potatoes just now. Yeah, they're just a bit of fall apart now. So what we'll do is we'll take them off and get them drained. So I've just drained the potatoes now. What I'm going to do is just give them a little sugar in the pan, just to give the edges a wee bit of roughness. And what we'll find is we get little, just pull one out of the pan, little rough edges to it. Okay, some of them might just break up into small little pieces, but that's going to represent the little crispy bits you'll find in the box after you've been to the chippy. Now what we'll do is we'll just wait a moment for them just to cool down slightly so we can lift them out of the pan. And what I'm going to do is onto a cooling wire, pop them into the freezer for 1 hour. Now for the tartar sauce, you can see the yield of our mayonnaise. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add a condiment to it. It's one of my favourite ingredients, salad cream. So I want to add a bit more creaminess to this, so a good couple of tablespoons to the meal. We'll give that a quick mix, and that's just going to slacken the mayonnaise slightly and just add a touch more richness. Taste every step of the way. Just a touch more. You can see how the mayonnaise holds itself, the nice sheen on there. Now, the accompaniment. We're going to take some gherkins and some capers. Now capers are just little immature, unripened flower buds, which are going to add some fragrancy and piquancy at the same time. Some parsley, which will probably, once chopped, take it to a tablespoon, and our dried seaweed. You can get in most specialist food shops. So we'll start off with the seaweed. Now it's quite strong, this, once it's chopped up, so I'm just going to see how we get on with it first of all. So what I've done also with the seaweed is I've just rejuvenated in just a small tiny bit of water. And we don't want too much again because it is quite powerful stuff, and along with the sugar kelp vinegar, it's going to lend fantastic flavour. Give it a little mix. A little really does go a long way on this. So we'll take our capers first of all. Now with tartar sauce, I've sampled many a tartar sauce, even over the years. I like it quite chunky. I want to be able to see the ingredients in it. I can't be doing with this blitzed to annihilation. So yeah, we're going to keep it just nice and coarse. So you can add as little as or as much as you want to the sauce. Now our gherkins, baby gherkins, again just want to keep it quite coarse. I do like a chunky tartar sauce. Bowl. Quick mix. And then for parsley. Just going to add a bit of pepperiness to it. Now, but often for the seaweed in this tartar sauce, I usually like to add a wee bit of tarragon in there as well, just for an aniseed flavour. This tarragon works really well with fish. There we have. And to freshen up, squeeze lemon juice, some cracked black pepper, a little taste. Everything's starting to come through now, but just for a touch more piquancy and a little dash of our vinegar. And there we have our homemade chunky tartar sauce. Now that will store You'll be able to store that in the fridge for up to a week in an airtight container. Lovely. Now, the fish itself, I've got a lovely piece of haddock here from Ronnie Scott. I've skinned it myself, but you can ask the fishmonger to do it for you if you're a bit wary of knife skills. It's plump and juicy. Now, usually on a fillet haddock, we've got this area here with about 7 little bones in it. Now, we want to cut this out. Now, this part is called the V bone. Just want to remove that little piece from the fish. You can see why. Little V cut there. Now we want to just run, even though a lot of care has been taken to remove all the bones, even with our wee bit of knife skills there, we want to run our hand over the fish just in case we've missed any bones, because it's nothing worse than eating the fish, enjoying, and the last mouthful you end up with a bone dish ruined in my eyes. So a quick scope on the fish, and that will be ready for frying. So now the chips, I've had a good hour in the freezer, because a nice crust to them already. Now what we want to do is, in the preset fryer at 130 degrees, we're going to just fry these in 2 batches. If we overcrowd the fryer, the temperature will just drop and we won't get the results we want. And we want to fry them for 5 minutes. So I'll give this batch 5 minutes, do the next batch, and then back into the freezer. You could use them after you fry them all, but best to go back into the freezer to go solid. So now we're ready to fry the fish. You can see the batter now. It's had a good half hour, to be honest, just to come together. With the gluten-free flour, it does seem to be just heavier than normal flour, so things have settled in the bowl. So what we'll do is we'll take a whisk. The aroma from the batter itself with the ale. The ale itself has got that peatiness to it with the process that they use. It's just got some immense flavour. Not using the basket. The fish is quite big. I've got a small fryer and I just don't like things sticking to the basket, so we'll set that aside. Take our fish, pop it into the batter. Again, I'm not using any excess flour to coat the fish. Now bear in mind, we are working with hot oil. Usual rules apply. I'm going to pop that, shake the excess off, just slightly away from us. Now what's happening here is there's a lot of moisture in the batter, a lot of moisture in the fish, so it's going to bubble quite violently just now. But once it starts to cook through, it'll just tone down. So that's going to take about 4 minutes. Okay, now the fish is good to come out. Had a good 4 minutes in there. We'll just rest it on our kitchen paper. And we'll just reserve that and we'll get on with the chips. The fish itself, 170 degrees, and we'll crank the fire up to 180. Now the chips have had a good freezing. You can see the rough edges to it. You can see some of the broken little pieces, like these ones. 180 degrees. So this will be the 3rd cooking of the chips. Doesn't really take long to make, and you could have chips in the freezer for whenever you wanted them. So we're going to cook these for about 3 to 4 minutes. Good golden brown. There we go. So there we have the fish and chips. Now, if I just take my knife, the fish has just been resting the length of time the chips have been cooking. We've got a nice crisp finish. That's been about 5 minutes for the chips to be cooked. If we look amongst the nest of chips here, we've got small little crispy pieces here, remnants. If I'm brutally honest, maybe I could have fluffed them chips just a wee bit more as they came out of the water. We would have some more crispy pieces. So to plate up, first of all, I'm just going to lightly season the salt. That's my preference. Just want to just lift the flavour a wee bit. Haven't gone mad with it. I'll take my plate in. First of all, with the chips, a nice scattering. Don't want to waste them crispy little pieces. You can see the edge on the chips now. Hot. And with the skin on the potatoes, remember, we're adding more flavour. We'll take our crispy fillet of fish, perch that on the chips. Optional extra right here, a bit of garnish, crispy batter pieces, and our chunky tartar sauce. So there's my take on my Hebridean fish and chips, using poacher's ale from the Loomshed Brewery that has got a peaty taste, which I've used in the batter, the Orkney vinegar infused with sugar kelp, which I've used in the tartar sauce to give it a fresh sea flavour, my chunky double cooked chips, and garnished with extra crispy batter pieces. Now, the vinegar as well can also be used if you like salt and vinegar on your fish and chips. A fantastic combination. I hope you've enjoyed this as much as I have in the research into fish and chips. Enjoy.